Mr. Graves for 5 minutes.
Madam Secretary, welcome back to the committee. I appreciate you being here today. One of the biggest things that I hear last week, I had the opportunity to be home during recess week and hearing a lot about just the unaffordability of living in America today, and specifically watching as we're seeing higher energy prices related to gasoline, related to utilities. I'm just curious, what message do you have to the American family that can't afford to make ends meet? And many of the policies that are coming out of the Department of the Interior are actually contributing to that as a result of higher gasoline and utility prices.
Thank you, Congressman. And I'll just say I missed your king cake this year, but that's all right. I had to travel all the way to your state to get one. But I will say, of course, we recognize that, and I know President Biden is working every day to lower costs for Americans. We believe that all the work we're doing on this clean energy transition will lower energy costs across the board for Americans across the country, and we feel confident about that. I know that we don't set gas prices.
Madam Secretary, I guess just this table here really concerns me, in that you would have to go back to the Jimmy Carter administration to even find any time in our nation's modern history where you would have such few acres that are offered for energy production. And just to put things in perspective, during Jimmy Carter's administration, they leased 100 times more acres than during the Biden administration during the same period of time. So I feel like that this is a direct result of this administration's actions that are causing these higher unaffordable prices for American families.
Congressman, I do, first of all, want to say that it's undeniable that production of oil on public lands is at an all-time high. It truly is. There are also a lot of leases and
Madam
permits
Secretary,
that are laying fallow.
Very quickly, just because I don't want to mislead the public, how long does it take to go from a lease sale to production onshore, and how long does it take to go from a lease sale to production offshore?
Of course, that depends greatly on the industry.
But ballpark.
I would love to pass it to Laura.
All right, I tell you what, just so we don't delay too long, it takes on average maybe 4 to 5 years for onshore. The only lease sale you've had for onshore was in 2022, which means none of the production occurring right now has anything to do with this administration. For offshore, it's actually closer to about 10 years. Once again, none of the production today has anything to do with this administration. What you're doing is you're creating an energy crisis for the future, not just for right now as a result of future supply, but you're creating an energy crisis for the next administration and the one after as well by not producing. Now, we've had senior administration officials that have come and testified before this committee that have said when you stop producing, it doesn't prevent or it doesn't cause a reduction in demand. All it does is it causes other countries to fill the void. And so let's take a look here. This is Iranian crude, and this shows the increase in Iranian crude because, again, voids are going to be filled. Voids will be filled. And so even though sanctions and everything else, we're actually seeing their exports increase, right? And so things like the LNG pause, the LNG ban effectively, it just creates market opportunity for other countries. And so here's Iran. I'm going to guess that you don't support the Israel-Iran war that's going on right now with the terrorists and others that are occurring. And so I guess some estimates have indicated that Iran has profited to the tune of $60 to $65 billion. That money's going to Hezbollah, Hamas, and others, and American service members have been killed. Does it concern you that U.S. energy policy is funding the Iranian war? We just came in and provided $14 billion in funds to Israel. So effectively, U.S. energy policy is funding Iran. U.S. taxpayers are funding Israel's defense. Does that concern you at all, and the death of American troops associated with this? Is that concerning?
With respect to your original question on production, as I said, it's at
I'm
an
sorry,
all-time high.
I've moved on from that one, but on the Iran issue, does that concern you at all?
Congressman, I'm concerned about everything about our country. I love this country. I'm concerned.
What message would you say to the troops' families that were killed as a result of Iranian proxies funded effectively with U.S. energy policy dollars that have been killed. What would you say to them as a result?
I would like to say to you, Congressman, that there are millions of acres of leased non-producing federal land currently in this country, and there are thousands of approved permits to drill.
And Madam Secretary, you sat before this committee and told us that there were 9,000, only to have come back and realize that the number was grossly overestimated, and also not really understanding the process, and that doesn't necessarily mean the ability to actually produce. Once again, there was just $60 billion provided in U.S. taxpayer funds to Russia. Russia is also profiting from U.S. energy policy. We're funding both sides of the war. Bad U.S. energy policy impacts American families and funds the Russians, and then American taxpayers fund the other side of the war. I'm very concerned about what's going on. I'd strongly urge you to think about the problem you're causing for the next administration and the one after. Think about the fact that this administration's energy policies are funding both sides of the wars, and American service members have died as a result.
Gentleman's time has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Neguse.
Well, I hope the chairman is as indulgent with Democratic members as he was with our colleague from Louisiana.
I think Ms. Stansbury went over about
All right,
minute.
well, I appreciate that. I will just say